Hello and welcome back to Bamaland 300. We are building an ATV carport inspired by Ryan at Surviving Ringworm. He went out to the woods of Michigan with a chainsaw mill and has built some really impressive buildings out there. So there's my ATV, and my ATV carport is 12 foot long. Now if you can imagine rafters on the roof structure, they can attach to themselves, or in this case it's going to attach to a ridge beam. Now with my Logossaw chainsaw mill, it can cut 12 foot long pieces, but I typically cut 8 to 10 foot logs for convenience. It's just a little easier, so I don't have anything long enough. So I learned about a scarf joint. Now I learned about the scarf joint from a YouTube channel called Skill Builder. A British bloke called Robin Clevitt showed us how to do a scarf joint on a similar ridge beam with 1.5 inch material. But I learned a little bit more or other stuff about a scarf joint from Shelter Institute. They are a channel that shows you how to do a lot of timber framing with large, big timbers, and they use scarf joints a lot in their buildings. And on that site, I learned that the name for this joint is actually called a wedged under-squinted stop-splayed scarf joint. That's a mouthful. Now what I did yesterday was I drew it out here, and after thinking about it a little bit, I decided to redraw it. So I'm going to sand this off, and I'm going to redraw it, and I'll show you the tweaks that I made for what we're going to do. Now here's my tools. I'll be using my 20 volt circular saw. I have a 60 volt down there. I've got the light battery on this just for more precision cuts and stuff. I have my Japanese pull saw for finishing those cuts. I'll be using my my marking knife, which instead of a pencil allows you to be very, very precise with your marks. I've got my speed square, my combination square. Funny story about flying in TSA. I flew home, and then when I flew back, I didn't have my T-bevel up here, and I was going to bring it, and the T-bevel kind of looks like a knife. It's not, but I'm sure I would have had trouble. So I went on Amazon and I got this. This is for finding angles, gives you a little digital readout, and so that's kind of cool, and we'll be using that. I've got my block plane for just being real precise and truing everything out. I'm going to sand this off, we're going to redraw it, we're going to cut it, and then once we get this side cut really, really well, I have the other board over here. We'll flip this over and use it as a template to draw it out on the second board. All right, well, I think I covered just about everything here. So let's get started. I'm going to shut you down and move the cameras around just a little bit, and then we'll sand this off and redraw it. Okay, here we go. Well, all right, we're all sanded up and ready to go. First thing you want to do is determine the width of your board. In this case, these are almost 8, so I'm going to round up to 8. And the length of your joint is 3 times the width of your board. Make sure when you determine the length of your 2 boards that are going to go together and how much you need, that you add that length to your measurements so that you have enough. It's not half and half, it's the full length needs to be added to both boards. So in this case I've got 8 inches, and Robin instructs that it's 3 times that, so 3 times that is 24 inches or 2 feet. So let's make that mark from the end. Now I got a fresh cut on here, so it's good and 90 degrees for my marks. I'm going to use my marking knife just to be extremely accurate. Maybe an overkill in this situation, but I'll show you what that's all about. So there's my mark, perfect on that. And I take my speed square and move it right up to the flat side of the knife, and then with light pressure hold against the speed square and put a little cut in there. And you come back a second time if you want to make it a little darker. Now I'm going to continue to hold that. And I see that I didn't give myself enough room with that. I'll move that over and just spin this around while holding the knife in the groove and finish the mark. Now a good thing to do is to take your pencil after you've done that, and just to help you see it, put a light pencil mark in that impression that you made. And again, put your pencil in the groove and slide your square up to it. That'll make sure you're making a good mark. Okay, so there we have it. There's our 2 feet. Now, I said that there was a couple of tweaks I was going to do to this from my first drawing. And Robin explains that if you use a cutoff from your material, it's the same thickness as this, as your tool, and assuming it's straight, you can use that to draw this line here. That's handy because you'll have this material around and it's just easy to pick up from your scraps and mark it. However, this is 1.5 inch material, and I wanted to go 2 inches on this because this will determine the width of the under squinted part, and I'll show you what that means in just a minute. But what you want to do is you want to line the outside here and then the outside here. Make sure you pay attention to that. It's the outside and the outside. But I'm not going to use this piece. I happen to have a long straight edge right here that is 2 inches wide, and I prefer that. So you want to go to the outside right there and the outside here, double checking. All right. So you only have to mark, you know, half of it really. So there's that half roughly, and I'll come over a little bit, and then this half here. All right. And so this is the other change that I'm going to make, is that Robin teaches that this should be a 90-degree line on your under squinted part. I've seen other scarf joints where it's a little steeper, just giving you a little bit more of an angle for that piece to grab a hold on. So I'm going to use my fancy new angle finder here to determine 85 degrees. I'm only going to go off by 5 degrees. All right, so you put it on a known flat spot here, hit the 0 button, and then I'm going to come up 85. There it is, and tighten that down without moving it. 85 degrees. All right, it's only 5 degrees difference. That should be fine. All right, now I am going to use my knife on this one because it's an important cut. Double check my tool hasn't moved. And again, flat side of the knife against your rule. You don't want to push too hard. Yep, see there, I moved it already. There we go. So multiple passes instead of pushing real hard to move your rule. All right, there we go. I can see that. We got a little small ruler here, and I'll just improve that just a little bit. All right, so instead of 90, that is now 85 degrees. All right, and so the same thing here. This is the first time I've used this fancy little tool. I do like it. And the light mark, a little heavier, and heavier yet a third time. Okay, we see that. We're done with this. Long press to turn it off and get it out of our way. And again, put your knife in the little groove and move your rule up to the knife. Now I can bear down a little harder. And like I said, it's convenient after you've done that to use your pencil to mark that groove. This method is really handy in custom woodworking arrangements where you absolutely positively have to have it perfect. Paul Sellers online, I don't know if any of y'all watch him, but he talks about doing it this way, and then calls it a knife wall. You'll use a chisel on the waist side to improve it even more so. So that's pretty cool. All right, now the next thing we need to do is to mark the halfway point here and to determine this mark. Now, this is where increasing that the difference between the 1.5 inches and the 2-inch affects you also. Once you find this distance, and we'll go right in the middle to the middle, that's 24, move that over. This is not hypercritical, but there's your midway point. Now, the only difference that this makes is that when you go to make your wedges, remember this is a wedged scarf joint. So there's gonna be a slot here where 2 wedges go in, and they're gonna force the 2 pieces apart into the under squinted part. But right now we just need to cut it, and then we'll come back and we'll determine the width of our mortise, for lack of a better term, right there, so they'll spread apart. If you use the same material, in this case 1.5 inches, then when you go to make your wedges, you can make it out of this material and it'll fit. I've got all this 2-inch hardwood over here, this oak, and that's what I'm going to make my wedges out of. So since I went 2 inches here, I'll grab some 2-inch material to make my wedges, and that's really good hardwood, and it'll look cool too when we put it all together. All right, so this is a 90, so we'll line this up, our speed square, and draw that line. And I'm just going to use a pencil on this one. So right there it is. All right. So this is 85. And then this is the piece that I'll be cutting out. All right, I'm going to rearrange the board and we'll get this cut out. I'll move some of the tools out of the way that we don't need, and I'm just going to pull this board off of here so my saw doesn't hit. Let's see, we will need that. Double check my depth. Yeah, that can come up a little bit. What I was always been taught and what I do is you want to set your depth so that your saw just clears the gullet of the blade. That's that little curved space in there. All right, so that looks good. And here we go. Let me just double check 90. Perfect. All right. All right, not too bad. Using my rusty old block plane. These things being out here in the weather is not good for them. Perfect. All right, now we'll make this cut. It probably won't go all the way through. I mean, all the way to the edge. Just here, and I'll nip it off. Well, that wasn't a really good start here, but I straightened it out. We'll use the block plane to make that perfect. But you want that straight. And if you get off to a bad start on your line, just stay with it. Don't try to fix it and make it curvy. Just stick with whatever slightly amounts you're off. Now I want to be on this side of this cut. Is that right? No, this side of this cut. All right, let me see if I can drop this in any good. I've got my Japanese pull saw to finish any of these, so I don't need to be overly concerned with it. Just don't want to cut too much. Alrighty then. Alright. Kind of missed that one just a little bit, but I think that'll be alright. Now these saws have two different sides, one for ripping and one for cross cut. And it does cut on the pull, in case y'all were not aware of that. There we go. Now just need to make that cut. I don't really like the way I've got that Yeah, that'll work. All right, now pay attention to the marks. Saw blade needs to be on this side of your knife wall there. And finish the cut with the handsaw. I'm doing some road construction over there. Had a lot of trucks going by today. All right, well, there we have it. So not too much finish work. All right, I'm gonna turn the cameras off for a second and let the GoPro cool down. Then I'm gonna set this up on the edge and just double check all my lines and make sure they're perfect where we want them. And then we'll get the board that joins up to it. We'll prepare it. I didn't mention it, but you know, the boards, just about every board is gonna have a little bit of you know, cupping or crowning to it. And so what I did to prepare this one was took just a little bit off the middle on one side, flipped it over, took just a little bit off of each of the edges right there to take a little bit of that out. Didn't want to go too far. It's an 1.5 inch board. It might ended up being like 1.25 inches, you know, if I'd have made it perfect. But I just took most of it out. Probably when the boards go together, you know, over here, I'll match whatever cupping and crowning there is for it. All right, I'll be right back. All right, well, I turned our board up on edge and I've got it pretty secure. It's a little wobbly, but it's all right. Now, what I want to do now is make sure that all my cuts are as square and flat as possible. So the tools I'm going to use is my block plane. I've got it set up. I did a little bit of work off camera to make sure my block plane was just the way I wanted it, and I got out my little engineer's square. So this is the splay cuts and the, oh gosh, I forgot the complete name again anyway, but this is the let's see, wedged, under squinted, splayed scarf joint. This is the splay part. Anytime you put two pieces of wood together on an angle like that, it's called a splay. So I've looked at it and it's pretty good, but like right here, we can use our straight edge on that and we can see that we're off just a little bit. It rocks a little bit, a little high here. Now, I want to make sure that as I'm planing this perfectly flat, that I don't get out of square, and that's what we're using this for. And I can see that right there at the end where the circular saw stopped and the hand saw started, I'm still a little high right there. So I'll work the block plane a little bit more right there and coming down, coming down, coming down. That all looks good on the square side, but you can feel a little hump right there. So just to illustrate, if you can see that here, I'm not sure. I'm a little high here and it feels like I'm still a little high right there. And again, making sure I don't get off a little bit. And you know, the plane will find it. That's what they're designed for. And I'll continue that on to get that edge a little bit. Check for square. All right, I got that. And I'm still good there. Got rid of my pencil marks, you can see. And when I started this cut, I boo-booed right there, but I'm not going to try to bring it all the way down just to fix that. I'm just going to live with that little piece right there. I can still feel as I'm pushing where the plane is cutting and then it's not. So, you know, it's not perfectly flat, but we were getting there. Helps to have a little backlight. And yep, there's still that problem there, and it's just off a little bit. When it goes all together, I doubt you'll even see it. All right, so that's good. Now how about this one here? Can I get my straight edge in there? Yep, looks high right here. Maybe high right here. Let's see how the plane does inside this spot. Yep, it's feeling that high spot. Still high up in here. Get away. A little high right there. Maybe I might have overdone it with the chisel. When I was cutting this out, I think that's what I did. Maybe a little higher right there. So the better we make this first side, because it's going to be our template for the other board. You don't want to measure and draw out on this board, then measure and draw out on that board, because you'll always have some variances. Cut one, get it perfect, flat, square, everything, and then use it as your template on the next board. All right, so where are we? Let's see, this is that little piece that I tore out. The piece is still there, so I can glue it. All right. And so that's high right there. Yeah, that's not gonna work. I'm afraid my plane's just gonna continue to blow that out. Yeah. Well, how about a rasp? This is a rasp file. How worried should I be about that? I'm gonna at least try to get that blown out piece out of the way. Yeah. This is a double-sided rasp. These look like hacksaw blades. It's kind of what they're shaped like when they're put together. I really like it. And you got a fine side and a coarse side, and I'm using the fine side, of course. Yeah, I think that's got it. Do we like it? And it's still off or high right there. I like the way that rasp worked. Let's try that again on this side. I'm gonna use the pencil trick again. You know, I want to stay off that low side. Oh yeah. Well, probably splitting hairs at this point. Good grief, GoPro. Those things are notorious for overheating. Just feel like there was a high spot there. All right, well, I don't think I can get it any better than that. Yep, we are gonna call that good. All right, well, I'm gonna turn the cameras off, find a place under the shade for the GoPro for the next piece. It's Future Dave from the editing desk. As I'm finishing up this edit on Sunday night, I'm excited for tomorrow. Jason's coming over and we'll be putting the posts in the ground to complete the build of this ATV carport. I'm going to end this video right here. It's gone on a little too long. I'm almost finished editing the second video, the one that will follow, where we cut the second board for the scarf joint, make the wedges, and put it all together. Hit that like button, comment, and subscribe. I appreciate y'all being here. I'll see you on the next one. All right, I'll be right back.